this morning we'll be talking about valuing God's presence. See, valuing God's presence. And we're going to start in the book of Exodus, chapter 33. And we'll start reading from verse 1 through 4 first. By this time, this is right after the golden calf incident. And so God is not very happy with the Israelites at this time. But it says in verse 1, then the Lord said to Moses, depart and go up from here, you and the people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt. You notice the Lord put it upon Moses that you have brought up. Of course, it was the hand of God, right, that really brought them out. But he's saying, okay, the people that you have brought out of the land of Egypt, to the land of which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, to your descendants I will give it. And I will send my angel before you, and I will drive out the Canaanite, and the Amorite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, all those ites. And then he goes on to say in verse 3, go up to a land flowing with milk and honey. For I will not go up in your midst, lest I consume you on the way, for you are a stiff-necked people. Now I'm sure when Moses heard this, first of all, I'm sure he was very, very, not very happy about that. In verse 4, and when the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and no one put on his ornaments. And so God is saying, in essence, he'll bring them into the promised land, but that precious presence that went with them, the pillar of cloud by day and then the pillar of fire by night, his manifest presence, it's not going to go, with them anymore. And so, of course, I'm sure Moses is thinking, oh no more tent of meeting, and no more pillar of cloud descending, and the Lord talking with Moses, out of that cloud. And so Moses, being the good leader that he is, he goes into intercession. He starts to pray and talk to the Lord. And it says in verse 12, then Moses said to the Lord, see, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. Now therefore I pray, if I have found grace in your sight, show me your way, that I may know you, and that I may find grace in your sight. And consider that this nation is your people. He gives it right back to the Lord. Your people. Consider that this nation is your people. And he said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. But Moses continues to say, then he said to him, now, if your presence does not go with us, do not bring us up from here. And so you see how precious the presence of God was to Moses. Now, if he was just interested in getting the people, into the promised land, just to see that, he would have said, well, okay, as long as, your angel's going to go with us and he'll make a way. But Moses didn't say that. What was most precious to him was the presence of God. And so he was even saying, well, if you don't go with us in our midst, don't, bring us up from here. And then verse 16, it says, for how then will it be known that your people, and I have found grace in your sight, except you go with us? So we shall be separate, your people and I, from all the people who are upon the face of the earth. And I'm sure as Moses was speaking, I believe God was smiling. here's a man, that values, my presence, right? And then, of course, Moses, verse 17, so the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. By name, right? And then Moses said, I'm telling, he doesn't know when to quit, all right? And he said, please show me your glory. I want more of your presence, please, more manifestation, who you are, what you're like, please, And so verse 19, then God said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live. No flesh can live, in the presence of God, right? Without the blood of Jesus, but okay, again, or the glorified body, I should say. But verse 21, and the Lord said, here is a place by me, and you shall stand on the rock. So it shall be while my glory passes by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. And so God did, to a part, gave into what Moses asked, right? But you see how precious the presence of God was to Moses. In that time, when God will just descend in a pillar of cloud to just converse with him, to talk with him, and just having this tent of meeting. And while I was thinking on this and reading this passage, I thought of my former roommate many years ago when I was in Bible school. It was like a 2-year program, and the first year I was roommates with 2 girls. Suzanne, she was a second-year student, and she's the one that actually rented the apartment, because in those days they didn't have dormitories at that school, and so she had rented an apartment, and so she had put up a sign saying she was going to take in 2 roommates, and I was one of the ones that answered, and there was another gal by the name of Teresa, and it worked out real well. Suzanne was from Florida, I was from New York, and Teresa was from Ohio, a little country gal, and so it was an interesting mix, but we all got along, and the school was just only in the morning, and so Teresa usually went to work in the afternoon, so she and I, we were, shared a bedroom together, and so when she was gone, of course, in the afternoon, I had time to spend time, and the privacy to spend time with the Lord in my bedroom. But then there was a time when she could, maybe she got laid off, I don't remember why, but she didn't have to go to work, and so she was home. And so I had asked Suzanne, because I knew she had a closet and she used to pray in her closet, literally a prayer closet, right? And so I asked Suzanne, because she wasn't home either, usually in the afternoon, I said, can I use your closet, so I can spend time just worshiping the Lord and all this? And she said, okay. And so, I went into her closet, and literally a prayer closet, and she had it arranged nice, she had clothes around, of course, but she had a comforter on the bottom, so it would be comfortable and all that. And as soon as I closed, the closet door, I'm telling you, the presence of God was there. The presence of God. I hadn't even started, and then I realized, just, probably Suzanne spent many hours in that closet praying, and so that presence was already there to, and it was just it was really something Because even before I started to pray, boom, it was literally like a tent of meeting. That was her tent of meeting, and she had, met with the Lord every day, and like the Lord was there, ready to meet,
Wow.
and
Amen.
yeah, and so I just encourage you, if you just. Sometimes I know if you have children or you have a lot of people in the household, it's hard to find just privacy and by yourself and get along with the Lord. But to do that, right? Make time and space. You might have to lock yourself up in the bathroom so you won't be disturbed, if you have little kids or whatever. But just even for a short while, just to get alone with the Lord and have that time. And I think it's always good to have like a specific place, where you meet with God. It's like a tent of meeting, with my mother was always by the window, in the bedroom, and sitting in her recliner there. And now, I've inherited the recliner, and now I sit by the window, and that's my spot. That's my little tent of meeting. And somehow, so when you have a place like that, it's easier somehow to just focus into the presence of God, right? To have that place, that special place where you meet with God every day, And so I just encourage you, just like Moses was not willing to give up that close fellowship and just being in presence in that tent of meeting. It's always good for us to have that place also. Even if it's just you might be busy and for 15, 20 minutes, just to get that time alone with God and just pour out your heart to Him, to worship Him, just to pray, get into the Word, however the Holy Spirit leads you, just to have that place in that time. Now, another person in the Old Testament that held God's presence as precious is David. And I'm going to turn to 2 Samuel chapter 6. By this time, David is established as the king over Israel. And one of the first things he wants to do is to bring the Ark of the Covenant to the city of David. Because back then, that's where the presence of God was, the Ark of the Covenant. And so that's the first thing. But we know from the beginning of that chapter 6, his first attempt did fail because he did not do it the right way. And instead of having the ark carried by the Levites, they had put it on a cart. And of course, when the oxen just stumbled a little bit on the road, bringing the ark, and one of the men, I think it was Uzzah, just stretched out his hand to steady the ark. He died right away, right? Because God's so holy, you just can't approach Him like that. Not in the Old Testament days like that. But of course, after doing homework, he successfully brings the ark into the city of David, and that's where we pick it up in verse 12. This is 2 Samuel 6, verse 12. It says, "Now it was told King David, saying, the Lord has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him because of the ark of God." Where there's presence of God, there's blessing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If you're a believer. Now, it did not help the Philistines while they had the ark, because they didn't believe in the Lord, right? But for a believer, or in this time, the Jews, just having that ark, it was a blessing to Obed-Edom. All right, and then it says, verse 13, "And so it was when those bearing the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces that he, David, sacrificed oxen and fatted sheep. Then David danced before the Lord with all his might, and David was wearing a linen ephod." You notice David was just so happy to have the ark come into his city. He was just dancing with all his might. He didn't care what other people thought about his dancing, what he looked like. It was just so elated. He danced before the Lord with all his might. And he didn't even have a kingly robe on. It was just a priestly, the linen ephod. There was a priestly garment. There was a sleeveless priestly garment. That's what he had on. And then it says in verse 15, so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting and with the sound of the trumpet. There's just such joy. Now as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and whirling before the Lord. And she despised him in her heart. The presence of God meant nothing to her. What meant to her was what other people thought of, being seen as dignified and all these things. And she didn't care about the presence. But anyway, it says, verse 17, so they brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had erected for it. Then David offered burnt offerings and